What's up, guys? My name is Mike, and welcome back to a very special episode of Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4. So we're talking about great Canadian heroes in World War II. We talked about George Burling, and next I want to... pardon me. How rude of me to cough in your ear. My apologies. Next we want to talk about the only other guy who may have had more lives and more luck in World War II than Burling himself. So the Falcon of Malta met his unfortunate end in a routine, somewhat ironically, in a routine flight. But the next guy we're going to talk about was a gentleman by the name of Ray Silver out of Toronto, nicknamed Lucky Silver for a lot of good reasons. So Ray Silver was a good pilot, not the best pilot, not George Burling good, but was a good pilot and flew a ton of sorties over Europe especially. That was his key sort of demographic. But also met with a series of unfortunate accidents. He was shot down twice. He had 2 crash landings. He had 3 very rocky landings where he came down essentially in flames and nearly crashed. He had 4 written off airplanes. He flew one of the first night missions ever, before night missions were really a thing, and just had a lot of rotten luck with his planes. Great pilot, very hard to kill. He flew also, where his sort of bad luck story really started, he flew also in the first 1,000 bomber flight over Cologne. Cologne, of course, being, do they have it marked on the map? Is that a major city here? Somewhere in Germany. Where are you, Cologne? Hanover. I should probably know my geography a little better. Pommern, Mecklenburg. I know some geography nerds right now screaming at the screen. It's right there, asshole. It's right there. I don't know where Cologne is. It's somewhere in Germany. It's in German city. Famous battles. Anyway, the first 1,000 bomber raid, he flew as an escort and almost immediately got shot down. So poor guy, he later was writing about this and just writing about how he was... fucking Soviet Union. Concentrate on fucking Germany. Writing about how, pardon me, I'm losing my train of thought, trying to concentrate on too many things at once. Where are my other troops? Where are you guys? Are you still making your way over? Jesus, it's taking forever. Okay, well, nothing we can do about it. Wrote about how he was, 3 miles up in the air, watching the explosions and fire over Cologne, and just like, almost just anticipating, his own death. Luckily, when he finally landed, he was taken into, taken out of the wing, or taken into to help by some Dutch nationalists who sort of dressed him up in civilian clothing and were able to sort of try to help him smuggle him out. So his uniform was basically trying to escape Europe. He lasted for about 3 days on the run, trying to escape through Germany, and eventually was captured by German forces. Of course, by his accent and by lack of paperwork and so on, they surmised that he was not actually a Dutch civilian trying to flee the war, but was some sort of foreign national. And they immediately accused him of being a spy and so on and so forth. Eventually, he's able to convince them that, no, look, I'm not a spy. Please don't execute me. I'm a soldier. I'm an airman. And he's able to convince them. He lies his way out of trouble. Well, he wasn't really a lie, I suppose. He talked his way out of trouble because he was an airman and shouldn't have been executed. And eventually, they lock him up in a prisoner of war camp. And off the top of my head, I cannot remember which war camp it was. I don't think that's important, though. Don't want boats. What do we want? We're working on our support. This is still a year and a half ahead. Ooh. This is half a year. We'll grab half a year. That's good enough. Call to arms. We're in fucking call to arms. Wants our help versus... Oh, why do they want to declare war against the Soviet Union? Is it because Turkey? Was Turkey an ally? We're going to decline that. Turkey wants our help. Oh, they joined the Allies. Alright, so now the Allies are fighting the Soviets. I was hoping that would not happen. God damn. That's not good. I was hoping just to collapse the Axis and call it quits. But I guess we're fighting the Soviets. We're doing alternate history World War II, I suppose. What was I talking about? So he's in this prisoner of war camp. I can't remember which one. And he's basically there until the end of the war. Wasn't able to escape, wasn't able to get out. And, the Germans were pretty good at treating their normal prisoners of war. Weren't so good at treating, their own people, notably like the Jews and so on, Jews and gypsies and Slavs and homosexuals, but prisoners of war they were okay with, depending on the camp that you went to. Champagne, where's Paris? Is Paris? Champagne. What? Center. Which one's Paris? Paris, right there. Good. Okay, we're gonna push our way to Paris from the south here. Let's clear this spot out at first, I guess. Right. So on the train ride home, despite surviving all of these like crashes and whatever during the war, the train ride home, literally his train crashes, has a head-on collision, and is completely derailed on the train ride home. Luckily, he's still not able to kill him. Guy's tough as shit, and he eventually makes it home. There were some other incidents thereon. Beyond that, I can't remember off the top of my head, some sort of like minor scrapes here and there. But truly one of the hardest men to kill in World War II, despite being shot down and imprisoned and so on and so forth. Luckily, he's also able to lie. Oh, pardon me. When I said he's lying, I also meant to bring up that he was also lying to protect the Dutch sort of like helpers that helped him escape, and was able to protect their identity. So they actually went unscathed, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he actually hooked up with them after the war to thank them for their service. Anyway, incredibly hard to kill, great hero, Ray Silver, Lucky Silver. So the next heroes I want to talk about are actually naval men, Navy guys. So the Navy is interesting, and I'm going to break it down to, we'll talk about the actual Three Musketeers, I think, next episode, but I want to kind of talk about the lead up to the naval engagements and how the naval war was really evolving in Canada at this period, the early 1940s. So the Navy was an interesting thing because, again, you kind of have to understand a couple of things. So there's a famous quote, it might even have been by Winston Churchill, where the wars of today are fought at first like the wars of yesterday. So this quote comes up, and I'm probably going to use this again and again because it really is interesting. This plays well to, if you think about World War I, this is a perfect example of this, where generals and countries were planning on fighting World War I like the Napoleonic Wars, but machine guns themselves had changed warfare so much, and it took a while for tactics to really catch up. So we always go into war planning. Italy's capitulated. Thank fucking God, the Americans did a good job. Now we can focus on the Russians, Soviets. You slimy dogs. Let's head over to the Soviet front and knock those guys out of war. We'll go and kill all these guys. Are you here yet? God damn it. Taking so goddamn long. So yeah, wars of today are fought, at least initially, like wars of tomorrow. So World War I is a great example, fighting a Napoleonic-style war, or going into a Napoleonic-style war, without realizing that machine guns would change everything. And, a lot of sea battles were much the same. They were not prepared, and of course Hitler really turned this on its head, these tactics, when everybody was sort of preparing for another Great War-style war. France in particular with the Maginot Line, not expecting the Blitzkrieg. And World War II naval combat started off much the same way, expecting sort of a World War I style engagement, not expecting things like the German U-boat attacks and so on, which took everybody by great surprise. It took them a long time to kind of figure out how to combat against that. So diplomacy, who are we at war against? So all of these guys, the Germans still exist up here. We should probably go help them clear out pocket by pocket. So we'll go clear out the German Reich over here, and then we'll make our way. So one of the key things was to get the Navy in shape. So what Canada did, it was actually, again, Winston Churchill, who sort of thought of the idea of like a Corvette-class destroyer, or Corvette-class gunboat, essentially. So a small gunboat that could really be sort of modified from existing tugboat and fishing boat designs, essentially. You throw in guns, these things can be churned out quickly, and they really filled a role that up until now hadn't been filled, because, again, we're talking about World War I style combat, ironclads and battleships blasting each other. So what Churchill did is he actually used this sort of saying to his advantage. Nope, we want everybody on there. What the fuck? There we go, and execute will clear out this pocket. He's just kind of saying to his advantage by looking actually back at old naval warfare at the different types of tactics to use with mixed type of ships. So, if you're talking about like turn of the century type naval warfare, you would have all sorts of different classes of ships. It wasn't simply just the biggest and baddest ships in the sea. So this is what he did, and he kind of came up with the idea of a Corvette class. And of course, Canada was all on board with this because the Corvette classes could essentially be built with off-the-shelf parts. Like I said, they're modified towboats and fishing boats. You just armor them up. I guess we'll get synthetic oil. You armor them up, and you throw a bunch of guns on them, and they would actually do really well, especially when escorting other types of boats and hunting U-boats and the German E-boats, which were a huge pain in the ass. And because of this, because they were off-the-shelf parts, they could be essentially built by private contractors. Private companies were building them for the Canadian government. So the overburdened military naval bases could get some relief, and then private companies could also help build these things, which was a huge benefit, because the industrial capacity of Canada, because the war effort was essentially started from scratch, just couldn't keep up to this. So these Corvette class small boats were Canada's main sort of driving force in the naval conflicts. German Reich has finally capitulated. That's good news. All right, diplomacy. Let's go down here. Let's go fight the Germans down here. I wonder if the Germans will. No, still Japan as the axis. So we'll make all these guys. Actually, maybe we'll just go up to this little thing here. Well, maybe see if we can punch into the Russians. Let's go fight the Russians. I want to fight the Russians. Okay, so grab you guys. Let's go on this border. Battle plan like so, and we're gonna get on there. So the naval battles in Canada, the naval sort of conflicts in Canada, also started off a little ingloriously, with a bit of an embarrassment. So Canada's, blossoming navy was kind of set to protect some of the fleets that were stuck in Iceland from German E and U-boats. But what happened was a British commander basically was afraid. There was a big embarrassment where several German. Okay, now they fucking break the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. At least they're gonna help us fight the Axis now, dumbasses. El Salvador is doing some shit. Good for them. What was I saying? So, hang on here. So they start off with a bit of an embarrassment where the Canadians were going to be set to protect Icelandic boats that were parked in Iceland from the Germans. However, a British commander who had just suffered the loss of several battleships and was quite embarrassed, was too scared to risk any more of his resources, and basically called everybody back to the Finnish ports to help protect against the Soviet incursion. And because of this, all the Canadian boats retreated, and most of the boats that were parked, Canadian and British boats, all allied boats that were parked in Finland, ended up getting sunk. Most of them ended up getting sunk by the Germans because they were completely left undefended. So we're talking about convoys, we're talking about fishing boats, we're talking about commercial transports and so on. So start off with a bit of embarrassment. However, it was also in the Mediterranean. So kind of funny how both Canada's air power superiority and reputation for air power and naval power came from the Mediterranean, because it was three brothers from my blessed hometown of Vancouver that signed up. The day the war was declared, these three brothers signed up. All fishermen, all boaters, lifelong boaters, decided to sign up together and send themselves off to war. And these three musketeers really kind of changed the face of warfare, using these small Corvette class boats to great effect in the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm going to talk about those guys in great detail in the next episode. Going to take a break here. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Much love, big kisses, and we'll see you soon.